Hey, I'm Marco.
And I'm Jenna. And this is Live and Learn.
Okay, so in our last video, we talked a little bit about how we set our goals and how we prepare plans for those goals. And another thing we mentioned was how the weekly meetings that we have to try to reassess and make sure we're keeping up and staying on top of those goals that we have. And this is a good time. This meeting is a good time to cover that, and honestly, a lot of other things, a lot of other important things that just go on in our lives.
Yeah, so in today's video, we're just going to talk to you a little bit more about what these weekly correlation meetings look like for us. So what they are, why we started them in the first place, a little background behind what it is, and different things that we discuss and things like that. So, yeah.
So in our correlation meeting, correlation. Correlation means a mutual relationship or connection between two or more things. Basically, this correlation meeting is a way for us to just be on the same page and have more open communication about anything and everything, and just to try to make sure that we're aware of each other's plans individually, as well as try to plan out our family plans, basically.
Yeah. Sorry, I was playing with this the whole time you were talking. Anyway. Yeah, so a little background into my experience with family meetings and things. So when I was growing up, my parents, at some point, I think I was around 9, they started having these meetings every week when we had our family night. And it was super simple at first. But at dinner time, we'd all sit down, all 9 of us would sit down at dinner, and we would just go around and share one positive thing that happened the week before and one room for improvement for the week. And my dad would initiate this, and so we just, go down the line and everyone would share something positive that happened or their favorite thing. And that was the time to, share, I got 100 on my test, or I did this, and whatever. And then the room for improvement. Yeah, it was really nice because there's a lot of us and you get forgotten easy. That's not what I meant. You just overlooked. Little things like that get overlooked. That's what I meant. And then room for improvement was just something that we want to be better at the next week. And I never realized at the time, but those were my family's goals that we would set for ourselves each week. Is that would be oh, this is something I want to improve. And the idea was that you would improve it the next week. However, I don't think we did that. I don't know. But that's kind of how it started. And there were a few other times where it kind of changed, where my parents would pull us in and we'd meet with them one kid at a time to have some time with them. I don't know. It was a little weird. I didn't like it. It did not stay. It didn't stay very long. They started it when I was a teenager, and by that point, if we got called in to talk to them, it was because we were in trouble. So them trying to switch it up on us and be like, "You're not in trouble. We want to get to know you." We were like, "Why?" So that didn't last very long. But and I don't know what they do now, but I really did like going around and focusing on positive things and things that we can improve. And so that was definitely something I've always wanted to implement then with my future family. And so that's kind of how my background started with that. But then it also continued similar things when we were on our missions. So,
So when we were on our missions, that weekly correlation meeting is something that is a meeting that we would have every week. And the main purpose of that meeting was pretty much just to go over our plans and try to make sure that we were always staying busy, and not just staying busy, but making the best use of our time, whether it was doing service or doing work in a specific area, or whatever. There was a lot of things that went on, and so basically it was just a way to make sure we were using our time the best way that we could, and also to simplify our daily planning a little bit, because during this meeting, we would kind of create an outline of what we were going to do every day that week. And so that made the daily planning in the morning a little bit easier to get through, since we already had a pretty good idea of what we what we wanted to do. And another pretty important part of that meeting was we would have a companionship inventory. I don't know why it's called that. It never really made sense to me, but whatever. And in that part of the meeting, the important thing was just trying to, if there's any conflict between you and your partner, you kind of try to work through those things to figure out those problems to make sure you're on the same page and you're working well together. If there was disagreements, if there's a lot of contention in that companionship, sometimes not a lot of work got done. So it was important definitely to be working those things out, and to do it regularly, not just... I think it's easier to figure things out as you go, as opposed to if you say nothing and hold it in and just hold it in, well, eventually you don't hold it in anymore, and that can lead to a whole big thing. So I did think that was beneficial. Sometimes it was kind of uncomfortable or annoying, but overall I found it to be pretty helpful. If nothing else, just so you were on the same page and you could get through and get some work done. So
yeah, and I like the way that you explained it, because you're like, it was to simplify everything going into the next week, like, because you know what's to be expected, and like you have your initial plans, so then you can worry about the details of those things later. And so after we got married, we didn't start having this meeting at first. It wasn't until we moved back to Idaho and continued school. So that was about, a year into our marriage at that point? Almost?
Yeah.
Almost a year. And so we're like, before then, we just worked and we were with family and we just kind of spontaneously lived our lives, and it was kind of nice. But when we came back to school, I was working a couple jobs, doing school, and you were doing school full time, and you were looking for a job, and our life just got so busy and chaotic. We didn't see each other very often. We didn't get to hang out because we were busy with homework and school and life. And in my opinion, I think it kind of strained our relationship starting out that way, because like we didn't have time together and we didn't do things. But so at some point we were like, we need to bring this back. Anyway, so we started this meeting, and it was mostly just to realign ourselves to each other, and in an attempt to just get connected again.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. So when we first started this meeting, it was pretty simple. It was pretty much just a general outline of what our schedule looked like for the week and a quick outlook into what's going on this week, just so we're on the same page. Since we have different schedules, that keeps us pretty busy. Like you said, we wanted to make sure that we were finding time to come back to each other after getting through all these other things that we had to do. But from there, we kind of just started adding more and more things to this meeting as we felt them necessary to talk about, and I have found it to be pretty successful to have this meeting. Usually we have a pretty positive outcome, and it helps us to just be better prepared for whatever it is. So it's something that I've really liked doing. It's something that I've found really helpful.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm a very visual person, so we have this notebook that we just write in. It's a little bullet journal, and we just take notes on. I don't remember at what point we started writing things down, because at first it was just we would coordinate schedules and then move on. But then I think it was the beginning of last year, we started writing it down, and so for me that helps solidify anything that we're talking about, especially very serious conversations. Boom, it's written down and I can process it better. Other times it just helps to work things out on paper, so, and then we can track our progress too. So yeah, our meetings pretty much are outlined the same each week, and then We'll add in a few details or other things based on what's going on. So
yeah, so pretty much what it looks like is, well, like I said, our schedule more than anything. We now, at this point, we're on a pretty set schedule with work and school, but sometimes there's still random things that pop up here and there with meetings or, you know, some sort of special event with work or school that we need to be aware about. This is a good time for us to plan out our date nights. We have found that we don't plan them out. We kind of just tend to forget about them, or we
just watch a movie at home, which isn't a bad thing.
Or we just do something. Yeah, we kind of.
It gets us out of the house.
Yeah, it's a good way to intentionally be doing something, not just say, "Oh, well, we forgot," and then end up doing whatever and call it a date night, which sometimes happens. But we try to be a little bit more purposeful with that time. Another thing we talk about is our goals. Like we said, we have our yearly goals that we like to review and reassess and see how we're progressing. One thing I really like about this meeting is being able to measure. That's a really important step, I think, in having a goal and following a plan. Is it measurable? You know, because if you're not measuring it, how do you know if you're improving or not? I mean, with some things you might be able to tell, but with a lot of things you really can't. And so I think it's this weekly meeting is a good time to measure how well we're doing in those with those goals, and make the changes necessary, you know.
Yeah, and most recently a few other things that we've tacked on in our meetings are like our filming and planning, our filming schedule and planning the videos that we're doing for Live and Learn, any type of travel we're gonna do with moving or visiting family.
There's gonna be a lot of that this year.
Oh yes, and you're gonna see all of it, so
yeah,
it'll be exciting.
So things like that are a little bit bigger, like traveling, it's not something that needs to be talked about every week.
Yeah,
but sometimes it does, as we, depending on where we're going. It's, oh well, this week I looked at this area for apartments or something, you know. You don't have to cover the.
I was gonna say we don't spend a ton of time on it. We don't have to cover it each week, but it's written down, it's recorded, and when we can, or it helps us know where we're at and what more we have to do to prepare for those things.
And I find it more helpful to break it up into little chunks. Again, it's not every week, but periodically we'll talk about this little aspect of when we go to this place. It's just easier to break it up into little chunks and figure it out that way versus waiting until, you know, we need to figure out what we're doing to move and how we're going to get there and where we're going to stay and, you know, whatever million different things. Instead, we just take it little chunks at a time. So when it is time to move, we're more or less pretty ready, or at least have a good idea of what we're going to do. And
dare I say, this simplifies things, which then
really does
works well with our goal this year. Yeah, that's honestly pretty much it. We tack on other things, so like tax season, we'll talk about money, taxes, tithing, moving, or something that's come up a few times for us recently is graduation, or when we're going to see our family and things like that. So different things. Sometimes we'll tack it on to our weekly meeting if it's small enough. Sometimes if it's something that we really need to sit down and plan and hash out, then we have a whole separate meeting for that, and we dedicate a lot more time to detailing those out. It just depends on our needs that week, and I like it. I enjoy having these conversations and planning. It makes me feel grounded more, and like that we're on the same side and we're a team because we know what to expect and we can face it all together. So
it's a good time to just get it all out there. A lot of times, because just life and we're busy, a lot of things go unsaid, whether good or bad things. Bad as in maybe corrections that we need to make. This is a good time to do it because a lot of things do need to get addressed, and in the moment isn't always the best time to do it. And so this is a good time to again, sort out those problems and work through things so we can be on the same page and continue to work well together.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're actually going to have our weekly meeting right now. But thank you for joining us again this week for our meeting and for watching Live and Learn. We totally recommend you having a meeting and planning out your life. Pick a day and prepare for the next week, and we can promise it'll help you less stressful. So make time for each other, cover what you need to do, and have fun and live and learn.